Hey everyone, Hobbs Yoda here. I know this is very different to the videos I usually do on this channel, but I'm going to be doing my first ever reaction video to a plot leak that came out, and this is also going to be one of my first theory videos where I have some theories here that I want to touch on that I have for the new Spider-Man No Way Home movie coming out in December. I have some theories I want to touch on as I read over this new plot leak that has come out for the film. Because this one has really caught my attention, and this one is actually coming from a pretty good, reliable source, because it's coming from the same source that confirmed who the cameo appearance was going to be in Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 5, and they're spot on it. So yeah, this is hopefully coming from a pretty reliable source, and I say hopefully because I actually do really like this plot leak. Um, I'm just going to go over some of the bullet points for it. There's also a video. The article's on comicbookmovies.com. There's also a video. They have a YouTube video of it covering it, going in more into detail, which I'll put a link down to below if you want to check that out. But yeah, I'm just going to be touching on the bullet points from this plot leak in the article. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with that. It says there is a time skip. Peter is in court, and there's a lot going on as he's trying to prove his innocence. So the movie is going to pick up right at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home, where everyone finds out his identity, and it's going to do a time skip to where he's in court, trying to prove his innocence, since we know that Mysterio framed him at the ending of the last movie. It says the multiverse is breaking and there are villains from other worlds. Doctor Strange is trying to capture them and put them in a special prison he has made. The villains somehow escaped because Peter messed with some magic to clear his name, and it's now up to him to get them back into the prison. I think this could be very accurate too, because there's something similar to this that actually happens in the comics. Because in the Civil War comic, Iron Man encourages and talks Peter Parker into coming forward and publicly revealing his identity. And after the events of Civil War, Peter, of course, kind of regrets it and actually does get help from Doctor Strange in the comics to make his identity a secret again. They actually do come up with some spell to make everyone forget that he revealed their identity to them. So yeah, I can definitely see them trying to do something like that here in this film. That would be pretty cool. And we know Peter's a bit of a klutz, especially this new Tom Holland version of Peter Parker. So yeah, I could definitely see him, nerding out and stuff, messing around in Doctor Strange's lair, then accidentally, releasing these villains, trying to come up with a spell to clear his name. So yeah, it says next that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the second and third acts of the movie. That is exciting. And it says there are some scenes with Maguire and Garfield on their own. This makes me really happy and excited because both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, I wish, had ended on far better notes with their Spider-Man films. And it's a shame that, Andrew Garfield never really got to finish up his trilogy that was planned. Especially since, Amazing Spider-Man 2, being his last movie, wasn't as good as Amazing Spider-Man 1, which I loved. And Spider-Man 3, whew, an atrocious film to end off on for Tobey Maguire, and he originally had a Spider-Man 4 planned as well that didn't plan out. So glad that they'll have their time on their own in this movie, and that we'll get to see them have, better fitting ends for their characters, so I'm pretty excited for that. Next up, the article says the movie's final act is on the Statue of Liberty, that now looks like a big Captain America with the shield. Now, this actually makes sense to me, because I know some of you might be thinking, like, what? The big Captain, the Statue of Liberty decorated as a big Captain America with a shield? What the hell? But this movie is actually taking place 6 months after Avengers Endgame, and so does the TV show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where they've just, crowned this new Captain America, John Walker. And we've already seen they've been doing huge celebrations with that by having parades and such. So that's probably why the Statue of Liberty looks like that. It's probably dressed up in decoration to celebrate the new Captain America. But yeah, it says the final act of the Spider-Man movie will take place on that Statue of Liberty, dressed up as Captain America with a shield. And it says the villains are all there. It doesn't list who all the villains are, but I have my theory on that, which I'll get to. And it says Holland, Maguire, and Garfield are all there too. It says there is a Stark reactor the villains are fighting over. And it says all the villains, except William Dafoe's Green Goblin, end up in that prison that Doctor Strange made. The Goblin kills someone And it says, I'm not sure who, but Tom Holland's Peter Parker was crying and got so mad he tried to kill Goblin and very nearly did. It says the movie ends with Peter finishing high school. It looks like everyone still knows he's Spider-Man by the end of the film. So I have some theories on that second to last bullet point where it says that, the Green Goblin ends up killing someone that really upsets Tom Holland's Peter Parker. So I think who the Green Goblin is going to kill there is actually, sorry, my finger in the way of the camera there, is actually going to be the MJ that we have been introduced to in these first two Tom Holland Spider-Man films. I think this is very plausible because, this MJ we've been introduced to isn't even really the Mary Jane from the comics necessarily, because her first name, as we find out in Spider-Man Homecoming, isn't even Mary. So, they could very easily kill her off, and the reason I think they are going to kill her off is because, again, if someone dies, it has to be someone that's going to make, Peter that emotional, and that's the one that would make him the most upset, I think. And the fact that they said after this death, after this person that William Dafoe's Goblin kills, after the fact that Peter very nearly kills the Goblin, in an effort of revenge, makes me think back to the Amazing Spider-Man issue 119, I believe it was, where Gwen Stacy dies. The issue after that, Peter tries to get revenge on the Green Goblin, rightfully so. And his emotions, get the best of him, and he very nearly beats the Goblin to death there as well. But he pulls himself off because he sees, how much he's let his emotions take over him and the monstrosity that he's about to become. And then he, sees the glider coming, jumps over it, and the Goblin dies very similarly to the same way he does at the end of Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man film, killed by his own glider. So yeah, just because, those two, that's the only other time in the comics I can think of where, Peter nearly killed the Green Goblin, and it was because a loved one of his got killed. That's why I think the same thing is going to happen here in this new Spider-Man movie coming out. I think, this version, William Dafoe's version of the Green Goblin is going to kill Tom Holland's love interest in this MCU universe that he's in, being this version of MJ played by Zendaya or whatever, and I think that's what's going to set Peter off. Again, I think it's plausible because this isn't even actually the actual version of Mary Jane from the comics. So if she does die, this version of MJ does die, they could introduce the actual Mary Jane later, or they could just do a switcheroo where they just have Mary Jane die instead of Gwen Stacy in this universe, and instead of like in the comics where Gwen Stacy dies and Peter forms a relationship with Mary Jane later on, they could just in this universe have Mary Jane die, get killed by the Green Goblin, and then him form a relationship with Gwen Stacy later on, which I think would be cool and interesting. And that could also be a way for them to introduce maybe Spider-Gwen later on. So yeah, that's my theory. I think the new version of MJ we've been introduced to will die in this third movie coming out. And another theory I have, again, you'll notice in this plot leak that they didn't list who all the villains were. I have my theory on that. I think the three Spider-Mans are going to be teaming up because they're going to have to battle against the Sinister Six. And I think the Sinister Six in this film is going to consist of William Dafoe's Green Goblin. We already know that Dr. Octopus is... I'm sorry, Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, is coming back. So I think it's going to consist of him. We know that Jamie Foxx's Electro is coming back from Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's been confirmed as well, so I think it's going to be those three. And then I also think Vulture and Scorpion from Spider-Man Homecoming are going to come back. And another theory I have, I think Mysterio from Spider-Man Far From Home is still alive and will be returning as well. You see, I think Mysterio at the end of Far From Home definitely faked his death and is still out there. Because you'll notice when he does get shot at the end of Far From Home in that scene, the version of him that gets shot isn't wearing the Edith glasses like he was. And even when Peter, approaches him, sitting on the ground with that bullet wound that he has, we see the real Mysterio try to shoot Peter from the side, but then Peter, catches the gun, and we see that's the real Mysterio because he's wearing the Edith glasses. But then after that, we see Peter take the Edith glasses, put them on, and he asks Edith, is an illusion or whatever. But you'll notice that whenever Peter talks to Edith, throughout the rest of that film, she lights up whenever responding to him, and you'll notice that he didn't. I don't think he says Edith or whatever. I think he just says, "Is this real?" So you'll notice that it might just be part of Mysterio's illusion. You'll notice that she doesn't light up when she responds to him at the end of the film, saying, "All illusions are gone" or whatever. So I think that, yeah, Mysterio's definitely still out there. I think he definitely faked his death, and it was just an illusion. Um, so yeah, I think he'll be coming back, and yeah, the Sinister Six will be the main bad guys of the film, and that if William Dafoe's Green Goblin is returning and killing someone, I think it is definitely going to be this version of MJ we've been introduced to. Again, that's just the death that makes the most sense to me. Yeah, let me know what you think of this plot leak, though, or any theories that you have, your thoughts on my theory, if you agree, or if you have some of your own. Let me know if you're excited for the new film coming out, and if you have any thoughts. I'd love to talk to you down in the comments below. I'll catch y'all later in the next video. Peace out.